Okay, welcome back to another episode from Tailors with Love. Today we're going to talk about The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the 2011 version directed by David Fincher, based on the book by Stieg Larsson called Man som hatar Gibnar, I think, starring Daniel Craig, Rooney Mara, and Christopher Plummer. The costume designer for this was Trish Somerville, whose filmography includes Gone Girl, The Dark Tower, and Justin Timberlake music video. Joining me on the show today is Jovan Gauthier Vincent, returning guest. How are we doing today, Jovan?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good.
Excellent. Excited to have you here. And online too, we have Eisuke from Inspired by Bond. How are we doing today, Eisuke? Well, Eisuke, have you reading us?
He might have gotten frozen.
He's gotten frozen. That's a shame.
Oh, no.
I'm sure he'll jump in at some point. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I should say, Rotten Tomatoes has it at 86% with the critics and 86% with the audience as well. It's the same, loved by critics and audience alike. I think Eisuke might be trying to bounce in, but Eisuke, you there?
I am. I got cut off by Dark Tower.
Dark Tower. Okay, well, you haven't missed much. It's good to have you on the show, man.
Yeah.
But Jovan, let's start with you. You've written extensively on the style of this film. The blog that is over on thecavalier.com. We'll leave all the links in the show notes. And maybe just give us your thoughts on not just the costumes of the film, but the film itself as well, please.
Yeah, but extensively. You're being generous there, Pete. I mostly just wrote about the first tailored clothing outfit, but yeah. I really enjoyed the film. I mean, it's a darker film than I usually enjoy. Certainly, Stieg Larsson, he did not pull any punches in his original novel at all. But yeah, I generally enjoyed the costume design, whether it was Mikael Blomkvist or Lisbeth Salander's costumes, Christopher Plummer's costumes as well. She did a great job, Trish Somerville, on that. Though, as I said in my original blog article, it's interesting that she kind of dressed Mikael, as a stylish man. I kind of saw him as more of a guy who just kind of dressed however he wanted to. Maybe just bought some things here and there at various fashion stores in Sweden. Just whatever the salespeople really sold him. And I mean, one sympathizes. I'm a salesperson myself in my day job right now, but so yeah. But yeah, overall though, it really works for the character. Whether he's looking slightly disheveled, with wearing a sports coat and waistcoat with an untucked shirt or whatever, it just works for his character. He's very comfortable in what he wears. He likes what he wears. Clearly, and I just really, and of course, Lisbeth's costumes were just amazing. Of course, like they really went all out there.
Yeah, so, we should touch upon that as well. It's not just the gents that we need to talk about in a film like this, especially. I think the Elizabeth character, she even had a whole H&M range after this came out, right? So I think Trish Somerville teamed up with H&M and having only seen this for the first time guiltily the other night, it kind of all makes sense now of what people were wearing 10 years ago, what was happening around that space, and how this, had such huge influence on fashion trends at the time of both men and women, I think, actually. In your blog, Jovan, I was interested to read a quote from Trish from Vanity Fair, and I'll just read it out. Here, he's a stylish man, Trish says, because of the job he has and who he is, but we also wanted to make his clothes comfortable so that Salander could feel that she could approach him and trust him. With big fluffy sweaters and shirts slightly wrinkled, he'd never be starched and pressed, which I thought was quite interesting. So he has to have almost like a vulnerability. He has to be very, very approachable, accessible, and sometimes if you're very tailored, much like a Bond, there's a standoffish, non-trust element with that, right? And your response to that also, which I think, which you just touched upon,
Right.
He's not innately stylish.
Right.
I think he says he seems to be more like the kind of person who buys things on recommendation of others.
Right.
And how much do we guys do that, right? In the Bond community, especially, we kind of like we have the style template of Bond to begin with, and then that kind of trickles down of, well, this looks good on you. Will it look good on me? Well, what size do you wear? Does that kind of coordinate? And I feel like that was certainly, if there was any kind of story to Daniel Craig's wardrobe, that would be the tagline. Eisuke, what did you think of the film? You saw this for the first time the other night?
Well, no, I've been watching this film for whenever I can. When I'm not feeling Bond, I'd be watching this or.
I thought you
else.
said you watched it the other night, and that was for the first time. Sorry.
Well, it's been around in me ever since it really came out. I remember because I was literally, I think, a junior high school student when it first came out. I even remember like the trailers, like on the red buses in London, because where I was when I was around the time. The style never really came to me until very recently, but then once it did, it was very quick until part of my wardrobe became Blomkist's wardrobe. But then one thing you notice is how easy it appears to accumulate things that look like his clothes, but how hard it actually is in execution. Like, for example, I'm not particularly copying any outfit from the film, but it's pretty much the vibe or the combination you see the most. I think a number of 4 times that you see is a combination of literally a wrinkled sports shirt, a waistcoat, and a chunky sweater. But each of these looks, that, as you know, Jovan's been saying, it's kind of it's all calculated to make him look more approachable, but kind of have make it appear as if he's kind of working hard for a particular kind of look as well. So for the sports shirt, it has to be kind of wrinkled, it has to be kind of washed at least to appear that it's not necessarily a crisp starched shirt. And yeah, that kind of shirt's actually quite hard to find these days unless you're looking into a particular kind of sports shirt territory. Especially the ones that aren't buttoned down. That's actually quite hard. Mikhail doesn't wear any button down shirts. He wears like short point collared shirts that you'd have to really look into to sort of imitate the look. And for waistcoats, I think he either wears them in tweed or flannel. I believe some of these like fluffy looks he has come from flannel, but he doesn't make them look like them, like a flannel that one would wear. He would make it look as if it was something he had forever.
Yeah.
And especially you cannot find a light grey flannel waistcoat off the rack. And Lord knows I've tried. So I ended up making one bespoke from Timothy Everest in Japan. But so it is a very hard. It's a very hard look to find, but it's a nice kind of. By wearing this, it looks as though you've tried to dress for the occasion kind of look. So it's nice.
Yeah, no, I always felt that he made the effort in the film. He wasn't completely disheveled or slovenly, or I mean, he's kind of an down on his luck character, but I don't think his wardrobe was a direct reflection of that. I should have done this at the start, guys. I'm sorry. So, Eisuke, again, for the YouTube people, just real quick, summarize what you're wearing and the brand.
Okay, what I'm wearing. Okay, forgive this, which I don't think he does, but it's fucking colder. It's the Japanese countryside, and it's 3 a.m. in the morning. But this is, I think it's a Save khaki shirt, sports shirt. It's not the actual thing, but they still do shirts like this. It's a navy shirt.
I think he had the petrol color or something like that. One of them was like a petrol color.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. But that's the Save khaki brand shirt?
It's the Save khaki brand shirt, but it's a much later like rendition of what you probably be wearing. And this is a light grey flannel waistcoat from Timothy Everest in Japan, which I got made bespoke. And this is, I think the original was a Margiela cardigan, but since Margiela never does this anymore, I found something almost identical. It's charcoal, it's ribbed, It has a massive shawl. It's from a company called Winston and Company, and it's not cashmere. It's not like $1 million. It's still expensive, but it's still accessible, and it has the film look. So if you're looking for something like the Blomkvist look, I strongly recommend this brand.
Nice. Jovan.
Yeah, so I'm just wearing, see, this is just a shawl cardigan I got, I think like early 2012, something like that, from Rugby Ralph Lauren, you know, back when that branch of the business was still open. I think they closed down like 2014, something like that. But yeah, I was actually, funny enough, kind of inspired by both this film and Quantum of Solace slightly. You know, Quantum of Solace, like every guy was getting a friggin' shawl cardigan after that movie. Yeah, I just thought it looked really cool and comfortable, and cool and comfortable. Stealing Ian Fleming's words there. You know, yeah. So I got it on sale for like, I want to say $60 or something like that. It was kind of a steal. And then this shirt, this is just some chambray soft collar shirt I got from Proper Cloth a few years ago. That made to measure shirt maker online. And can't see it, but down below I'm just wearing a pair of comfortable slim fit Levi's. So
Nice.
yeah.
Well, so this won't really mean a lot to people listening on the podcast. Thanks for indulging us, but we are on the YouTube showing off our clothes, and I've got a soft collar Lee shirt. That's about as close as I could get. The collars I actually really did notice in the film, because I looked at the collars and thought, crikey, these just look knackered. As in, they really do look like they've been washed 1,000 times. But that is very much the style of the shirt and the brand, right? It's quite a workwear, comfortable lounging around brand. And I've just got the RGT jacket for the No Time to Die garage scene. So very tenuously linking to Bond there. There is, Jovan, you sent me a link over to a lot of the stuff that's sold at auction. So it was good to kind of highlight a lot of the brands there. It seemed to me like a lot of the Daniel Craig stuff sold for peanuts relatively. I wonder, like, I mean, is there a reason for that?
Do that well financially, though, I think is part of the problem. And yeah, people probably kind of, by the time it went to auction, they probably forgot about it, unfortunately, you know, in the public consciousness. Even though the film did well critically, you know, it's just, as I recall, it didn't do that well financially, which kind of unfortunately put the sequels on indefinite hold. So
yeah, so I heard it cost something like 90 odd million to make. It made that back in the box office in like a couple of weeks, and then I think internationally it got somewhere around 150 million. But the blueprint is for the movies that you have to make twice the amount of money,
right,
to recoup and then make up. You know, breaking even is in. That's it. Making twice the amount of money of what it's made is breaking even. You got to make 3 times the amount of money of what it made, and then people are interested in talking sequels, etc.
right.
Don't take that as verbatim. That's just stuff that I've picked from the ether. Eisuke, was there anything that you noticed in the auction, or is there something that if it came up for auction now that you'd definitely be looking at?
Wow. Where should I start? There are a lot of things. There are a lot of things. Well, kind of. I think I read in some interviews that they're kind of like, you know, carefully curated design and done essentially. And when you look into like how the approach taken to, I think, the pieces selected, it's really smart. It's like, you know, it's similar to how you remember this pair of trousers in Spectre, which are from Neil Barrett. I think he wears them with the Dior like pirate jacket kind of thingy. But no one would guess it was Neil Barrett until someone, I think, was informed that it was Neil Barrett. And you know, I think in Spectre's case, it was probably this pair of trousers, probably the jacket itself. You know, it's like a designer that no one would point out that it's a designer thing until someone would, you know, like actually looked into the tags and saw like, wow, that's like a designer thing. But for this film, it's pretty much the whole wardrobe is like that. No one would know like a particular cardigan is like a modular cardigan until you looked in and saw, okay, it's modular. Wow. And you know, a number of things, you know, they look ordinary from like just by like first glance, they look so ordinary until you look into the small details. One thing I really like is I think there's a Yves Saint Laurent like gray single-breasted coat. I think he wears a number of times in the duration of the film, which yeah, Jovan, you've written about this. I really like that part, but I never noticed actually. But it's single-breasted, three-buttoned, notch lapel. Like it looks normal until I think the cuff configuration was a bit.
Yes.
Like, yeah, it's like
it's a really interesting
cuff.
What's going on with the cuff?
So I think it was a three-button cuff.
Yeah, there were like 3 buttons, and then it had like this kind of semi-hidden button tab at the end. It was just very peculiar. I was like, oh, okay. And I was trying to figure out what it was for so long, and then I just kind of happened upon it, you know, like when I was trying to research the coats that Yves Saint Laurent made the top coat, and Prada is the one who made the
courtroom suit, the court.
The courtroom suit and the shirt that goes with it in the beginning of the film. But yeah, I was just looking up Yves Saint Laurent top coats, and yeah, I happened upon a thread, funny enough, from AGB 007, and somebody had it in, you know, a navy color. It was from around the same time, and I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what it looks like, you know, because I couldn't really get much detail on it before then. So, Bond fans, thank you once again.
And then did you say, I will put in a bid of $20?
I think he was selling, I think that thread was from like years ago, but it was still, prices were a bit much for me, unfortunately. I think the sizes were a bit small for me as well.
Right. Yeah, it's a great haven, AJB. Isn't it? I don't really spend as much time on it as I should do, admittedly, but it always comes up in conversation at some point, as does David Zawadzki. So, for example, learning about Safe Khaki, I was reading your article, Jovan, and then reading stuff on BAMP Style, because Nick's done quite the blog over there. And then he said, oh, and David Zawadzki's spoken about this over on his site. I was like, oh, okay. So I'll have a click on the link. And it's David Zawadzki from 10 years ago on a very old channel called The Z Lifestyle. And he's in the store doing basically the Bond experience, but, you know, in the embryonic stages before he made it the Bond experience. So I did message David straight afterwards, though. I said, down every rabbit hole, you're there waiting for me at the end. It's like, I was always here first. Which was amusing. Tenuous James Bond links, talking about Bond. I always like to do a little bit of tenuous James Bond links. Obviously, Daniel Craig, not such a tenuous link. Stephen Burkoff is in, is it Frode? Is that his name? Frodo? I want to say Frodo, but that's not right.
Not quite.
I love Stephen Burkoff in pretty much everything, but in this especially, he just seems like he's in his element, doesn't he? You got Crockett and Jones, also worn by Bond and by Daniel Craig in this, and the Tetbury model especially, which has been seen in I think the last three Bond films. I was surprised to learn that he wore some Henleys, the rag and bone Henleys in this. So that's you know, I didn't realize that he had such an affinity with a brand from such an early age. Obviously, he wears them to death in No Time to Die, but I wonder if this was the birth of that love affair between Daniel Craig and Rag and Bone. Have you got any Rag and Bone Henleys, Eisuke?
I do. I mean, I you know, obviously upon trying to accumulate his wardrobe, I looked into a lot of those Henleys. It's interesting that they all come in a very nice shade of blue, which if you try to look into other brands, it's literally impossible to find. And it's really interesting because I think the Henleys in that film have like a 4-button placket, which when you try to look into that, that's also so hard to find, because the one in No Time to Die was like a 3-button placket, right? I think that's all the rage, or like all you can really find these days, 3-button placket Henleys, but 4-button placket Henleys, I think by the time of the film, were like the mainstream design for Henleys. And when you look into kind of like the behind the scenes documentaries for these films, you actually notice like crew wearing Henleys with 4-button plackets as well. That look really similar to the ones Blomkvist was wearing as well. So every time I was like on the internet thinking, why the hell does this random staff member have the Henley that I want? And I'm looking forever on the internet for something I cannot find. It's so hard to find, but that's another rabbit hole too.
Interesting.
You could message them on Facebook, see if they still have it. Look
So
them
on
up. Not creepy at all.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a Henley.
I often find it's bordering, because sometimes when I try and get costume designers on the show, I'll look them up on Instagram, and then if they don't reply, I'm like, that's fine, try and get an agent. If they don't reply, fine. And then you go through IMDb and all the kind of assistant key costumers, and then you get to right down to the bottom of, well, he turned up on set one day with a package. And then when that guy gets an email from me, he's like, oh, dude, what? That was 10 years ago. I was there for 5 minutes and you found me. Yeah, that's drawing that. That's crossing the line, I should say. Interesting. Well, gents, Jovan, any closing thoughts or anything further to add?
Yeah. It's funny, we were talking about earlier how he's the character of Mikkel is never really buttoned down, so to speak, never starched or pressed or anything. It's funny because the opening of the film and then the Christmas party afterwards, like those are the only times he wears like an actual like suit and tie in the film. And you can tell he's kind of out of his element there. Like it's just a performative thing for him, It's very performative. He's just going through the motions to kind of get by in those scenes. And I just found that very interesting because it's just so opposite from the part he's most known for, James Bond, at least at that point, who by the end of Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, you can tell he's very comfortable wearing tailored clothing. And even when he does kind of on his own terms in the film, like I said earlier, it's just like untucked shirt, jeans, all that other stuff, wrinkled shirt, all that. So he's still wearing it in a very comfortable, kind of, stereotypical journalist kind of way. So
yeah. Eisuke, any final thoughts from you?
Wow. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I've so over the years of me trying to pretty much replicate his wardrobe every time it gets cold, it's interesting because I think last year I'm pretty much in the same place that he is, like 4 hours by train, countryside, snowy, cold, exactly where I am right now. And every time I look into that part of my wardrobe where I'm trying to pull together a Blomkvist look, I feel it's actually very practical and kind of not too try hard at the same time. And you could dress like this and someone can invite you for dinner and you can still look, you can still jump into that car without looking like I'm pretty much. It's very practical, but also quite dressy at the same time because you have all these, chunky knits. You don't look too try hard, which could be a thing when you're like, when you're also doing a Bond look, because like, polo shirt and leather jacket even is like very smart casual, and people will think you're so put together. Whereas this is like, it's an element of like, wrinkled, formal, wrinkled pretty much, but then the overall impression is very soft, so it's very, very calculated. But at the same time, like untucked shirts when it's, when the dead of winter is pretty much in your face, or having, unbuttoned plackets, but kind of a scarf dangling through, letting the wind get into your neck. Some parts I find a bit unpractical. He doesn't wear gloves a lot of times. But yeah, so you do have kind of those, movie magic moments, but pretty much being in the same situation, same place, Japan equivalent where he is in the film, I find if you're looking for a cozy winter capsule wardrobe, looking into the Blomkist wardrobe is actually a very good place to start.
Yeah.
But be prepared for a very long journey to find something that looks like him.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Well, I mean, we've got 5 minutes left. Where would you start? I mean, you're saying some of these brands aren't actually around anymore. I mean, maybe we can start it from like a not a budget Bond, but an accessibly priced price point where you're going, look, I kind of want to get what you're wearing there or what you're wearing, Jovan. Where would you start looking, Jovan?
Oh gosh.
Replicate the Blunkfist on a budget, the next Instagram handle.
Honestly, as much as I hate to say this, thrift stores and secondhand stores are where you can get a lot of, battered, sports shirts and things like that, even from like, especially if you're kind of where I am, around the Salt Lake City area, you'll see some like kind of fairly high-end thrift shops, where some fashion brands are deposited there, from the, kind of upper class people who owned them before and wore them to death and, things like that. And yeah, I have, funny enough, going back to rugby Ralph Lauren, which that's the sweater I'm wearing, I have occasionally found those on sale for sale on eBay and places like that, Poshmark, Mercari, I think the website is called, and sometimes the people charge obscene prices for them, but yeah, you can find them most of the time, like less than 100, something like that, and most of them are still in relatively good shape,
Okay, interesting. Gents, really enjoyed this. Thanks for jumping on, and thanks for recommending the film, Jovan. It's a 10th anniversary, I believe, of this film, or it was in October, if I'm right.
So, at least I think November or December of 2011.
Right. So it felt like a timely reminisce for you guys, at least. I just saw it last night. Where can people find you on the internet, Eisuke? Where's the best place to shop for you?
To shop for me, well, Instagram, I do.
Inspired by Bond.
Inspired by Bond, pretty much.
Highly much
It's
recommend.
very not too much Bond. What I'm trying to do.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful channel. And Jovan, the best place people can find you.
Well, my Instagram as well, Nouveau Vintage Jovan. I'm not updating as much as I used to. Funny enough, now that I'm working full time again, but every so often, put something up.
It's a good sign. It's a good sign. If you got too much time on your hands, then your social media is going off like fruit machines. Gents, I'll let you guys go. Eisuke, thanks for getting up at 3 a.m. in the morning. Jovan, thanks for taking time out of your day, and catch you on the next one.